King Herod was fueled by madness and paranoia and became one of the most successful architects of the ancient world. King Herod the Great's tomb has finally been found, but why has it taken over 2,000 years? The great Jewish historian Josephus Flavius left us detailed accounts of Herod's funeral procession, and why has the tomb never been found? Josephus Flavius describes the talent being buried at Herodium, but the problem is that it is much larger than just the monument, and Professor Ehud Netzer has dedicated 35 years of his life in search of the tomb. Professor Netzer and his team searched for a lifetime to find the tomb of Herod the Great and were greatly rewarded on May 7, 2007, when they hit the archaeological jackpot. At last the long-lost tomb of Herod the Great was found. Herod the Great killed many of his own family members and ordered the killing of all Jewish males under the age of 2 in the town of Bethlehem. In his final fit of madness shortly before his death, Herod even had one son killed just 5 days before his own death. Herod the Great built the port city Caesarea in 25 BCE, which was the civilian and military capital of Judea and the official residence of the Roman procurators and governors of the time, including the infamous Pontius Pilate, who put Jesus of Nazareth to death. Here in the sunny coastline with no hard rock underneath once he left the coast, and with lots of storms in winter time, Santa built a harbor like this on a grand scale that was so magic that it took my colleague more than 25 seasons of expeditions to figure out how they did it. Herod the Great built the impressive desert fortress known as Masada on top of an isolated rock plateau lying on the eastern edge of the Judean desert overlooking the Dead Sea. He defied nature and built his private palace into the natural formation on the side of the cliff. In 70 AD, a group of Jewish extremist rebels called the Sicarii took Masada from the Romans, but in 73 AD, when their refuge was about to be recaptured, they killed their families and turned their swords on themselves. Herod's buildings were marvels of the ancient world, but one odd-shaped structure in the middle of nowhere seems to have been a special one for the king, the Herodian. Built originally as a place of refuge for Herod and his family, it would eventually become the site of his burial tomb. Hadrian, the ruling emperor, attempted to root out Judaism by prohibiting the Torah law, the Hebrew calendar, and executing Judaic scholars in 132 AD. A revolt led by Bar Kokhba quickly spread across the country, cutting off the Roman garrison in Jerusalem. The Herodian fortress became a refuge for the members of the revolt. Here they carved out tunnels and secret passageways. The people who built the tunnels wanted to avoid the moments to know that they built tunnels in the hills. People sat there. They used the systems for all kind of uses, not only to live in but maybe throw that into them, maybe to reuse them for any other things. This tunnel took the heroes to the top of the palace where they could pick water from the system. It was built to hold water from the brutal crushing of the revolt. The Herodian slipped out of the limelight and was considered another relic of Jewish history, until an amazing claim was made that the tomb of King Herod the Great had been found. There has been much speculation about the cause of Herod's demise, but is there any clear evidence? Herod, who lived a life full of paranoia, died of natural causes, but he had all the males of the aristocracy locked up in the arena at Jericho before his death to protect himself from someone close to him poisoning or betraying him. His drive to impress his superiors in Rome propelled him to achieve greatness, often at the expense of others. He was despised by many Jews, especially the Zealots. After his death, people sought to destroy anything that was erected to honor or remember him, including his sarcophagus, which was destroyed by someone who hated Herod so much that they wouldn't even leave one piece unbroken. One of the factors that hindered the search for Herod's tomb was the expectation of what archaeologists would find their revisions of grandeur for sure treasures and a beautifully decorated sarcophagus' stone coffin, but what many failed to consider was that the tomb would be vandalized and in this case utterly destroyed. The caves of Qumran are located 13 miles east of Jerusalem along the shores of the Dead Sea. Here a discovery of biblical proportions was made. The scrolls have shed important light on Judaism and the origins of Christianity. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd was tending his flocks near the Dead Sea when he stumbled upon what some archaeologists are calling the most important discovery in archaeological history. He saw in the cave something which looks like jaws and was suspicious that these are arms because they are very long, narrow jars. Dead Sea Scrolls began to appear in the hands of Bedouin antiquities dealers and eventually appeared for sale in the Wall Street Journal. Some were purchased immediately by Zucchini, who realized the importance of the Professor Elizabeth, and today many of the Dead Sea Scrolls are on display in the Shrine of the Book. Dr. Stephen Fawn takes us as close as he can get to the site where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. In 1947, mysterious scrolls were found in the caves of Qumran near the Dead Sea, written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and some Greek. Archaeologists were able to determine that much of the scrolls were created and used around 2,000 years ago, but by whom is still open to debate. The Essenes were a Judaic sect that lived in Qumran and made these scrolls their emphasis of purity, drove them to find remote location away from the vile sin-filled cities where corruption was a distraction from following the ways of God. The Essene community lived a very disciplined and organized way of life, following their spiritual leader, known as the Teacher of Righteousness. They built their community Qumran and believed miraculous things were happening in their midst as they were cutting new grounds, preparing the way of the Lord. The library was the place where the study of the scrolls took place, the nightly Torah reading sessions took place, decisions were made here on a regular basis. And even the washing of the hands that had to take place in order to read from the Torah scrolls was done through a hole in the wall. At least 10 inkwells were found at this site, which is 10 times the amount found in the entire Dudi and Wilderness. These inkwells are the only ones that have been found from this period in the Judean wilderness. Scholars debate whether John the Baptist was an Essene, but the experts agree that his message of purity and repentance through water baptism was very similar to the message preached by the Essenes. Dr. Shimon Gibson is of the mindset that John the Baptist was not an Essene festival and that his baptism at the Jordan River was inclusive of all the children of Israel. John the Baptist lived in the sphere of the people of the Dead Sea, and his idea of baptism was purity, but his people used to go with white robes. When you describe John the Baptist, you see a woolen fairy, and you can see it in all the depictions of Christianity in art. John the Baptist belonged to the desert group, and his teachings are very similar to those of the Essenes. To find out more about John the Baptist, we visited a cave outside of Jerusalem that has many engravings that appear to be linked to John the Baptist and early Christianity. The earliest domains that we have at Qumran date from the time of John the Baptist, and they post-date the original use of the cave from the Iron Age, but then a group of Jews came and used the cave for baptism. People were coming to be baptized. The caves of Qumran yielded one of the most important finds in archaeological history when 900 scrolls and thousands of scroll fragments were discovered accidentally. The Dead Sea Scrolls are still catching the world's attention with every new discovery and every new translation. But how close are the Dead Sea Scrolls to today's modern Bible? There are differences in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but the oldest text of the Bible is similar. The Dead Sea Scrolls confirm the existence of the biblical text, show that the people who wrote them had a spiritual encounter with God, and that they believed that their hearts had to be circumcised to open them up to the mysteries of God. Although thousands of scrolls and fragments have been discovered at Qumran, there are still many mysteries surrounding these infamous scrolls and caves. What hasn't been found is quite important. I think there's a potential of discovering scrolls in the Qumran region and around the Dead Sea. Scholars are hopeful that they will reveal greater insight into an important time in history. Personally, I would like to be at the spot when some amazing scroll surfaces. The caves of Qumran have given us some amazing secrets from the past, yet, while answering many questions, these fascinating writings still hold many mysteries. Today visitors can see a piece of biblical history. The Qumran Caves and the Dead Sea Scrolls are fascinating remnants of Jewish history that have been unearthed in Israel's ancient soil. The Sea of Galilee is home to two brothers and the Jesus boat, a 2,000-year-old boat. A second-generation fisherman grew up in the Galilee and spent much of his free time searching the banks of the lake. He and his friend Yuval Moshe claimed to be amateur archaeologists and found something unusual. A call was placed to the office of marine archaeologists Kurt Rave and Shelley Waxman, who were busy themselves excavating shipwrecks off the Mediterranean coast. They found a shipwreck 240 meters underwater level and still in dry land excavation. Yuval and Moshe found pieces of wood and what appeared to be ancient nails in the Sea of Galilee and called marine archaeologist Kurt Rave for help. Kurt believed the brothers had found something important, but was skeptical the brothers had really found anything of importance. We met the two brothers here like the disciples, the two Jewish fishermen, the locals, and they took us to the site where we found the boat, and from that moment it became a madhouse. People from all over began swarming the site, and cameras began to document the dig. With the entire world watching their every move, they began their dig without any preparations. People from all over began helping, doing whatever needed to be done. Realizing how fragile this boat was, they called conservationist Orna Cohen, who at first was very skeptical. The team of volunteers and locals worked quickly to build dikes around the site, and soon artifacts were recovered that could possibly help identify and date the wreck. The boat had been depicted in art for thousands of years, but had never been found. The brothers had found a boat in the mud of the Sea of Galilee that looked like the boats described in the Bible. Could Jesus have used this boat? The unearthed team went to the biblical town of Mdal, where an ancient mosaic was recovered, and learned more about the fishing community 2,000 years ago. They excavated an ancient wooden boat that was 90 more than 99 itself waterlocked, so can't hardly hold his own weight. Everything was mission impossible when excavating this shipwreck, from the first day when we needed needles to put the number tags on it, to the end when we couldn't get the boat ashore anymore. Orna Cohen came up with an ingenious plan to preserve the wood and move the boat, using polyurethane foam. The team was then able to protect the wood and remove the boat from its muddy grave. After 2,000 years at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee, a 2,000-year-old fishing boat was excavated and encased in polyurethane shell that allowed it to float again, and even carry a passenger. Once the boat was packed and ready to move to the conservation area, a person had to sit on top of the lobby to stabilize it, and then it was moving slowly on the lake. Today, the boat is on display in the Egalalon Center. The brothers Moshe and Yuval discovered the boat more than 20 years ago and have called it the Jesus boat. This boat is the closest we can get to a boat used by Jesus that was used in the time from that place from those events. It is also the only one we got, so it's not important if Jesus used it or not. The boat from the time of Jesus gives us a glimpse back into one of the most interesting times in history and reminds us of his message of peace. The discovery of this boat has forever changed this region. A film suggested that a tomb in Talbot east of Jerusalem, which contained ossuaries, was the lost tomb of Jesus, from approximately 20 BCE until the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. The Jewish people observed a unique religious burial practice that was connected to their belief in physical resurrection. In 1980, a new neighborhood was built in Jerusalem that connected on to an original part of neighborhood that had been built 5 or 6 years beforehand. Dr. Shimon Gibson was one of the few people to enter the Tapia tomb after its discovery, and was told straight away that the cave had been opened in antiquity. The Tapia tomb was considered to be just one more tomb that had been unearthed in the Jerusalem area, but 27 years after its discovery it gained public attention with the release of the film The Lost Tomb of Jesus. The Tapia tomb may contain the remains of Jesus and his family, including his mother, Mary Magdalene. A film claiming to have found the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth has caused a firestorm of controversy between the world's leading scholars. Dr. Craig Evans is one of many who strongly oppose the theory of the Lost Tomb of Jesus film. I conclude that it is highly improbable that the East Albeit tomb was the tomb of Jesus' family. Finding an ossuary that contained his bones would be devastating for Christianity because one of the main beliefs is that Jesus rose from the dead in bodily form. Dr. James Tabor is one of the few scholars in support of the theory that the Tapia tomb may be the lost tomb of Jesus. He argues that the resurrection referred to in the Gospels could simply be spiritual. I find the suggestion that Jesus wasn't really physically resurrected unconvincing, and Dr. Craig Evans, respected author and biblical scholar, does not support the idea that the Tapia tomb belonged to the family of Jesus. The unearthed team set out to Israel in June of 2007 to take a closer look at the evidence that has led some scholars to believe that the Tapia tomb contained the bones of Jesus of Nazareth and his family. The Tapia tomb was found in the outskirts of Jerusalem, covered by a cement box and sealed from further investigation. 10 ossuaries were discovered, of which 6 have inscriptions, including Maria, Yeshua bar Yosef, Jesus son of Joseph, and Yosa. Matthew. Although there is no Matthew recorded in the immediate family of Jesus, the film claims that finding this name is not completely unexpected, being that there are many Matthews in Mary's genealogy, indicating that Jesus was married and had a son, Miriam Chimera. The lost tomb of Jesus suggests that this could be Mary Magdalene. The names found in the Topia tomb are common Jewish names, and perhaps as many as 25 of all Jewish women in this time were given those names. A tomb containing 10 ossuaries was discovered near Jerusalem in April 1980. 6 of the ossuaries were inscribed with the names of the deceased, including Jesus, son of Joseph. We decide to pay a visit to the Israel Antiquities Authority warehouse to see if the names found in the Tapia tomb are different from the names found on other ossuaries in the IAA's collection. We easily find many Marias as we explore the seemingly endless shelves of ossuaries. The IAA catalog reveals that 10 of the 231 inscribed ossuaries bear the name Maria, and approximately 10 of them read Miriam. Another rendering of the name Mary Maria was one of the most common names in the 1st century. Dr. Tabor is one of the few scholars who considers the presence of the name Jose in the Tapia tomb to be evident that the tomb belonged to the Holy Family. However, a majority of scholars are of a different opinion and believe that the names are common. The combination of names in the lost tomb of Jesus theory does not appear to be enough solid evidence to link the East Topia tomb to Jesus of Nazareth. Professor Camille Fox, a statistician, reviewed the computations that have been done regarding the hypothetical tomb of Jesus, and said that the chances of this not being the tomb site are 1 in 600. The lost tomb of Jesus claims that the Tabia tomb is the burial place of Jesus. However, many experts have questioned the information and the method used to arrive at this number. Mary Magdalene was closer to Jesus than the canonical Gospels record, and so I would expect a mother to be in the tomb who won't be related to him as sister or mother. Recent theories have surfaced about the mysterious woman from 2,000 years ago. Is there any truth in these films, and what do we really know about the ossuary with the inscription Jesus, son of Joseph? Recent theories have emerged suggesting that Jesus was secretly married to the woman known as Mary Magdalene, but there is no historical evidence that she was married to a particular person, be that Jesus or someone else. Mary Magdalene's ancient hometown Dal is where we hope to learn a little more about her since its original excavations over 30 years ago. The filmmakers of The Lost Tomb of Jesus attempted to prove their theory with the use of DNA testing on the ossuaries they believed to belong to Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The DNA test proved that they did not have the same mother, making it possible that they were husband and wife. Stephen Cox, a professor at the University of the Holy Land in Israel, tells us what testing was done on the Talbian ossuaries. We know by studying ossuaries and burial practices that multiple people were put into these boxes. Stephen Cox feels that the integrity of the scientific world has been compromised. There's no way that anybody could actually come and say that the material that was recovered here, biological material, the bones that were recovered from this box, is the one and only Jesus of Nazareth. The tomb contained the skeletons of 35 different individuals, and it is impossible to know who the DNA belonged to. Stephen Cox was portrayed collecting DNA samples for testing in the film The Lost Tomb of Jesus, but felt he was misrepresented. He preserved the samples for future testing, but did not send them to the DNA lab in Canada. The film The Lost Tomb of Jesus gained public attention with its suggestion that a tomb near Jerusalem may have belonged to Jesus of Nazareth and his family, yet some of the most controversial material in this film had to do with an ossuary that some believe belongs to Mary Magdalene. As an epigrapher, what do you see? 2 names captioned in Greek, not very well done, but normal for the period. The Lost Tomb of Jesus film presents a conspiracy-type theory of the 10 ossuaries recorded during the tomb's excavation. Only 9 have been located in the possession of the IAA. What happened to the 10th missing ossuary? There are suggestions that the James Ashley might have come from this tomb. The film claims that this could be the missing ossuary from the Tapia tomb, but the way the patina was collected from the James ossuary could not have been helpful in this investigation. And the missing ossuary was reported unimportant and uninscribed according to those who were carefully documenting the excavations. A photograph of the James Ashware, dated since 1976, has been confirmed by an FBI lab analysis, but also because further analysis of the James Ossuary by geochemists indicate that the James Ossuary actually had been in circulation exposed to sunlight outside of a cave environment for perhaps 100 years or longer. A young archaeologist noticed strange symbols above the door of the Talpia tomb, and was later told that they were linked to an ossuary found in the tomb of Dominus Fleming, which has an engraving that appears to match the facade above the Talpia tomb. The film The Lost Tomb of Jesus first made this connection as they investigated the idea that the Talpia tomb could be the tomb of Jesus and his family. Dr. Stephen Fawn brought us to the Dominus Flevet tomb to show us this very ossuary and explain something that he noticed from the film. The mason's marks at Dominus Flevet are most likely not early Christian symbols at all, but what about the Talpia tomb? Shimon Gibson explains that he has noticed many other tombs with a similar motif. The chevron motif, which is a common artistic design in the 1st century, is found on the facade of the Talpia tomb, which is different from the mark that was found at Dominus Flevet. The inscriptions that started it all are a closer look at the name Yeshua bar Yosef, Jesus son of Joseph, which is a question mark followed by the name Yeshua. It is far from certain that the ossuary says Yeshua or Jesus at all. The Talpia tomb is not the tomb of Jesus and his family, and it is highly improbable that it was the tomb of Jesus of Nazareth and his family. The true story about the family of Talpiot remains a mystery.